Rinaldi, for what
I move
purpose?
passage.
Will the lady yield for a few questions?
Councilman Harris, do you yield for questions?
I will.
And this bill, as I read it, doesn't deal with the foster care system. We dealt with that in HB 4 and HB 5, correct?
It deals with those in the CPS, in the foster care system, and those outside of the system which will not qualify for HB 4 money.
This deals with those outside the system and expands the people eligible for TANF, correct? Assistance for Needy Families, correct?
Inside and outside of the system, yes, and they have to qualify.
And Assistance for Needy Families is also commonly known as welfare, correct?
Not in, it's a TANF, it's under TANF. It has its own term.
Correct. And it's commonly known on the HHS website and rulemaking as welfare in the captions of many of the rules that they've made.
It is supplemental assistance.
Right. Welfare. What I want to ask you is, this reduces the age from 45 to 25, correct?
Yes.
Of anybody eligible to receive this payment, correct?
Right. It's specifically limited to, if this bill passes, it's limited to the grandparents, uncles, aunts, and siblings of the child.
And it adds aunts, uncles, sisters, and brothers, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so more people would be receiving this payment than are currently receiving the payment now, correct?
If they meet the qualifications. They got to qualify.
So more people would receive these payments, correct?
If they got to qualify.
If they qualify. Yet there's no fiscal note. Why is that?
LBB, I worked with LBB. The reason why I picked the age of 25, I restricted the group, and based on the fiscal note, which you've seen, LBB held that the number of new recipients would be small and any cost to implement the bill would be already absorbed within available resources.
So we are giving more people a payment, yet there's no fiscal note.
LBB said there is not a fiscal note. Again, I narrowly tailored the group that would be eligible, and again, they've got to meet the strict requirements to be eligible for this funding.
So we're paying payments that we haven't paid before, yet there's no fiscal note. So this expansion of welfare, what is the requirement for receiving this payment? You have to train for employment. You have to either be employed or training for employment, correct?
No, there are certain requirements. You've got to meet at income asset level. You've got to be, again, a resident of Texas, a citizen, or a legal permanent resident, and you have to be at or below the 200% federal poverty level.
And you
have to work and be in job training.
Work or be in job training. Are you aware of specific fraud cases relating to welfare? And children receiving benefits and caregivers receiving benefits for their children?
This is not welfare, Representative Rinaldi. This is supplemental assistance for those that qualify.
If HHS calls it welfare, I call it welfare as well.
I have not seen HHS call it welfare. It's supplemental assistance for families that need it in order to
actually,
support
in the
these children.
captions in HHS, it's called welfare. I could show it to you after.
Okay.
But what I specifically want to focus on is the fraud cases, and what I'm concerned about is that this increases the potential for fraud, because in a lot of these cases, when you expand the family members that are allowed, nothing in this bill prevents the mother or father from still living in the house with someone else who's deemed a primary caregiver, correct?
Again, it is the primary caregiver that applies for this funding. If they qualify under the stringent requirements, then they are within the law. Now, if there is fraud, people are prosecuted for that.
Right, but this makes it easier to commit fraud, because the parent can live with the aunt, uncle, or now the brother and sister of the child who likely lives in the home. They can designate the brother or the sister the primary caregiver, which would then exempt the mother from the work requirements, also from the no drugs or alcohol requirements as well. So therefore, they're exempt from the welfare requirements. They designate a different caregiver in the same home and thereby evade the work requirements in the bill.
Again, there are strict requirements in order to qualify for this funding. If there is fraud, there are district attorneys of the state of Texas that will bring up a case against people committing fraud.
Can you assure us
this is a one-time payment? Again, district attorneys, if they find that there's a case, they will proceed against those people that are committing fraud.
Thank you for answering my questions. I can't support this expansion of welfare.